Some nightmares don't end, even when you wake up. I started my drive into northern Arizona late. Later than I should have. The sun had already gone down by the time I left Flagstaff, and the highway stretched into nothing but desert and silence. By the time I passed Tuba City, it was just me, the road, and a sky so dark it felt like it was swallowing everything outside my headlights. The radio had given up an hour ago. Just static. My phone was no better. Signal gone. Map frozen. A blue dot drifting across a blank screen. I gripped the wheel harder than I meant to. Told myself it was fine. Just empty land. Just night driving. But the desert didn't look empty. Every time my headlights swept the brush at the side of the road, I thought I saw something moving. Low to the ground. Fast. Ducking back out of sight before I could focus. At a gas station outside Tuba City, the man at the counter never looked at me. When I asked if the road north was clear, he just muttered the total and shook his head. Not like he didn't know, like I shouldn't be asking at all. Still, I drove on. By midnight, I hadn't seen another car in almost an hour. No taillights ahead, no headlights behind. Just my engine echoing against the black sky. And yet, I couldn't shake it. The sense that I wasn't alone out there. Something was keeping pace with me. I caught the first movement in my mirrors. Not a car, not even headlights. Just something. A flicker at the far edge of the road behind me. Too quick to place. When I looked again, it was gone. For the next few miles, the desert pressed closer. The brush leaned in toward the road like it was trying to smother the asphalt. My eyes kept darting to the edges, searching for, I don't know what, shapes, figures, anything. The worst part was the silence, not the peaceful kind either. The kind that builds until it feels like it's waiting for something. I rolled the window down for air, but it didn't help. The desert wind that rushed in was warm, sour, and carried nothing. No crickets, no rustling, not even the faint hum of power lines. Just silence. At one point, I passed a small sign. Faded, bullet holes punched through it. I couldn't even make out the words, just a red slash across the metal. A few minutes later, I realized my headlights had dimmed. Not much, but enough that the road ahead looked weaker, swallowed by the dark too quickly. I leaned forward, muttering under my breath, willing them to stay bright. Because if they went out here, on this road, in this silence. The brush shifted, right at the edge of the light. Something was out there, and it was close. I told myself I'd push through until Cayenta, just a couple more hours, then a motel bed, 4 walls, a lock. But exhaustion hit hard. My eyes kept sliding shut, the lines on the asphalt blurring into each other. Twice, I caught myself drifting across the yellow divider. That was enough. I pulled off at a dusty turnout, nothing but gravel and a bent metal sign half buried in sand. Killed the engine. The sudden silence made my ears ring. No other cars, no lights, just me in the desert breathing. I leaned my seat back, cracked the window an inch. The air was hot and dry, but it felt safer than the recycled hum of the AC. I told myself I'd rest for an hour, just enough to keep the car out of a ditch. The desert at night doesn't feel empty. It feels awake. I lay there, staring at the roof of the car, listening, waiting. At first, it was just the tick of cooling metal, my heartbeat slowing. Then something else. A shuffle, faint, like footsteps on gravel. I froze, straining to listen. Could have been wind, could have been my imagination, but it circled the car once, slow, careful, and then silence again. I told myself it was fine, just sleep, just let go, but every nerve in my body stayed wired, waiting for it to come back. I must have dozed, because when I opened my eyes again, the windshield was fogged with my own breath. My phone said 2:13 a.m. The desert outside was pitch black, my headlights dead, the moon swallowed by clouds. That's when I heard it. A voice, faint, carried on the dry night air. Michael. I bolted upright. My heart kicked into my throat. It was my mother's voice. I sat there, gripping the wheel, though the car wasn't even running. My mom was 3 states away, asleep in her little house in New Mexico. She had no way of being here. Michael. Softer this time, further away, but clear. I pressed my ear to the cracked window. My skin prickled. It was coming from the desert. Not close, but not far either. Like someone calling across a field at night. I wanted to believe I was dreaming, but the cold certainty in my gut told me I was wide awake. Michael, come out. The sound dragged across the dark like a hook pulling at my chest. For one insane second, I almost reached for the door handle. Almost. Then it stopped. The desert went silent again, but I couldn't shake it. My mother's voice, calling me by name from the middle of nowhere. And the worst part was how it sounded. Not scared, not desperate. It sounded inviting. At some point, exhaustion won. My eyelids sank, heavy as lead, and the desert outside bled into black. But sleep didn't feel like sleep. It felt like falling straight down, no ground beneath me, until the darkness began to take shape. I was standing in the desert again. Same scrub, same rocks, same endless horizon. But the sky wasn't black anymore. It was the color of ash, pale and bruised. The moon hung huge above me, swollen and red like an open wound. Shapes moved along the ridge, figures, human at first glance, but wrong, too thin, their limbs bending too far at the joints. Their eyes glowed faint, animal yellow. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My body just stood there, watching, while the wind carried whispers across the sand. I didn't know the words, but I understood them. The story. They spoke of men who shed their skin to become beasts. Men who traded their humanity for hunger, wearing the bodies of animals like clothes. Coyotes, wolves, even other people. I saw it, clear as day, a man kneeling in the dirt, stripping his own skin from his arms like it was fabric. Bloodless, clean. Beneath it was fur, slick and black. His face split into a snout, teeth jagged, eyes burning. And the others, they laughed in voices that weren't human. The dream tightened around me like a fist. My mother's voice again, only now it was coming from one of the creatures, her lips stretching too wide, her familiar voice spilling out of something not hers. Michael, come closer. The desert shook, my ears rang, the whispers rose into a single word, repeated over and over, drowning out my own thoughts. Skinwalker, skinwalker, skinwalker. I snapped awake, drenched in sweat, the taste of dust in my mouth. The desert outside was silent, but I swore I heard one last whisper. Not in the dream this time. Out here, circling the car. Closer. When I opened my eyes again, something was wrong. At first, I thought it was just dawn breaking. The light was gray, heavy, seeping in through the windshield. But when I sat up, my stomach turned. The car, it looked ancient. Dust caked the dashboard, thick as clay. Cobwebs stretched from the steering wheel to the gearshift. My hands left clean streaks through grime that must have taken years to build. I blinked hard, rubbing at my eyes. No, it wasn't possible. I shoved the door open and stepped out. The wheels were sunk deep, half buried in the dirt, like the desert had been swallowing the car for centuries. My footprints in the gravel from last night were gone, smoothed away as if the wind had licked them clean years ago. And the road, it wasn't the same. The asphalt was cracked, broken, littered with weeds pushing through, faded, almost erased, like no one had driven it in decades. I turned in a slow circle, my heart hammering in my ears. The desert sky was still gray, not night, not day. Everything was visible, but colorless. The brush stood still as statues. Even the air felt heavy, unmoving. I climbed back into the car and jammed the key into the ignition. Nothing, not even the click of a dead battery. Just silence. My throat tightened. I told myself it was still a dream. It had to be. But then, movement. At the far end of the broken road, maybe 100 yards away, a silhouette stood, upright, still, too far to see clearly, but close enough that I knew it was watching me. And it wasn't moving closer. It was waiting. I slammed the door shut, locked it out of instinct, even though the locks felt useless. My eyes stayed pinned on the silhouette at the far end of the road. It hadn't moved. Not an inch. But the longer I stared, the less human it seemed. Too tall. Too thin. Its shoulders sloped forward unnaturally, like it was straining against the shape of its own body. I forced myself to look away. Tried the ignition again. Dead. I kicked the pedal, smacked the steering wheel until my palms stung, whispering curses under my breath. Nothing. I couldn't stay here. I shoved the door open again and stumbled out, the silence swallowing even the sound of my footsteps. The air pressed heavy on my skin, hot and dry, but it felt wrong, like the whole desert was holding its breath. The road stretched ahead, fractured and crumbling. The lines on the asphalt faded into pale scars. I could walk it. Kayenta couldn't be more than an hour by car. If I kept moving, I froze. The silhouette was still there, still waiting. Only now it wasn't at the far end of the road anymore. It was closer. Not by much. Just 20 yards. But I hadn't seen it move. A sharp chill tore through my chest. I staggered back toward the car, nearly tripping over the sand-softened shoulder. When I looked again, it was still there. Same pose. Same distance. Watching. If I looked away again, would it close the gap? I couldn't stay in the car. The thought of sitting there while that thing inched closer. No, I'd rather take my chances on the broken road. So I started walking. Every step felt too loud, the crunch of gravel under my boots echoing through the silence. I kept my eyes forward, my pace steady, trying not to think about the way the desert seemed to lean in around me. The air was thick with heat, but no sun burned overhead, just that gray, bruised sky. After maybe 100 yards, I dared a glance back. The car looked small now. The silhouette was gone. For a heartbeat, relief flared in my chest. Maybe it had never been there at all. Maybe exhaustion, fear, and the dream had... It was ahead of me, not far. Just standing in the middle of the road, its shape dark against the pale asphalt. I stopped so suddenly the gravel skittered around my feet. My chest tightened, panic clawing up my throat. It hadn't passed me, and hadn't gone around me. It was just there. I forced my legs to move, stepping off the road into the brush. My shoes sank into soft dirt, prickly shrubs catching at my jeans as I pushed through, circling wide. When I came back to the road, it was empty, the silhouette gone again. I walked faster, nearly running. Sweat stung my eyes, breath tearing at my throat. And then, just ahead, maybe 50 yards, it stood again, waiting. Closer this time, always closer. I broke. My legs kicked into a full sprint, the cracked asphalt slamming under my feet as I tore down the road. My breath came ragged, my chest burning, every muscle screaming at me to stop, but I couldn't. Not with that thing closing the distance every time I looked away. The road blurred. My shoe caught on a chunk of broken pavement, and I went down hard. Gravel shredded my palms, the taste of blood filling my mouth as I hit the ground. I rolled onto my back, and it was there, right beside me. Its face hung inches from mine, but it wasn't a face. It was shifting, sliding from one nightmare to the next. First a wolf's snout, lips peeled back over jagged teeth, then a coyote's narrow head, eyes glowing gold. Then, worse, my mother's face. Her eyes wet with something like pity, her lips moving in words I couldn't hear. Then it was my father, my brother, a girl I once loved. Each face wrong, warped, stretched thin like paper over a frame too big to fit. Their mouths smiled, but the eyes never did. The bodies shifted too. A deer's legs bending backward at impossible angles. A bird's wings sprouting from a human torso. Feathers slick and black. A dozen different skins, all sliding one over the other like wet cloth. It leaned close. Its breath was hot and sour on my cheek. "Michael, come with me," I screamed, scrambling back on hands and heels. But the thing moved with me, matching every inch, every frantic breath. No matter what shape it wore, animal, stranger, loved one, it never stopped smiling. The desert vanished like smoke. I gasped awake, thrashing against sheets that weren't my own. The familiar smell hit me first. Old wood floors, detergent, the faint trace of cinnamon my mother always kept in the air. I was in my old bedroom. The posters from high school still curled on the walls. The dresser scuffed from years of use. Sunlight pushed faintly through the curtains. I sat there, trembling, trying to piece it together. Somehow, I'd made it back. The drive, the desert, the thing. It had to have been a nightmare. A long, cruel hallucination. I buried my face in my hands, whispering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." When I finally stood, my legs shook, but the floor was solid beneath me. I stumbled into the hallway, then into the bathroom. The same cracked tile, the same medicine cabinet mirror. I leaned over the sink and looked up and froze. The glass showed nothing. No reflection, not a trace of me. My stomach dropped, my breath catching in my throat. I raised my hand, waved it slowly in front of the mirror. Nothing moved. The silence pressed in. And then, from the kitchen, came a voice. My voice. "Morning, Mom. My mother has lived alone for 10 years.